You would abandon your seat over a mere disagreement in trade tariffs? Over 312 dead colonists.
The Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council had stood for 3 centuries, and in 3 centuries it had never known a silence like this. Ambassador Elena Voss rose from the human podium, her palm resting flat against the obsidian rail. 11 delegations watched her, scaled, feathered, crystalline, and shapeless alike, and not one of them breathed. Humanity withdraws from these negotiations, she said. Effective immediately. Councillor Thexdromer, the presiding chairman, leaned forward on 4 clawed limbs. Ambassador, perhaps you misspoke. Withdrawal from the session, or from the council entire? Both, Elena said. The chamber erupted. The Velcari delegate shrieked in his own tongue. The Ophidian bloc rattled their translator collars in protest. Only one figure remained still. Queen Saya Voreth of the Kirthon Hive, seated above the floor on her obsidian throne, her 6 eyes fixed on the human woman with something between amusement and warning. You would abandon your seat, Saya said, her voice a low chord of many voices at once. Over what? A disagreement in trade tariffs? Over 312 dead colonists, Elena said, on Meridian Outpost, in the last standard year alone. Silence again, but a different kind. A guilty kind. 6 months earlier, humanity had petitioned the Council for a joint patrol along the Threshold Belt, the lawless corridor bordering human space where raiders struck merchant convoys and border settlements. The Council had refused, citing budget and jurisdiction. Elena had pushed. She had been overruled. And then the reports began arriving, not of raiders, but of Council-registered vessels, their transponders scrubbed, moving through the threshold during the very windows when the attacks occurred. Elena had spent 4 months building the case in silence, gathering wreckage telemetry, black box fragments, a single surviving witness from a burned freighter who swore the attackers spoke Ophidian. She had brought the evidence to this chamber twice. Twice it had been buried in procedure, filed under jurisdictional review, and quietly shelved by committees that never once met her eyes when they voted. Bren Cade, her second, had warned her against pushing a 3rd time. They'll bury this submission the same way, he had said the night before, both of them still awake in the embassy office with the lights dimmed to save power. Or worse, they'll bury you along with it. Then let them bury it in front of everyone this time, Elena had answered, instead of in a drawer. Now she set the final data core on the podium and let it project above the chamber floor, a starfield, a convoy, and a full wing of Council warships closing in formation on an unarmed human transport. This is the 3rd such recording, Elena said. There will not be a 4th, because after today, no human vessel will be within 1,000 light-years of Council jurisdiction to record one. Thexdromer's throat sac flared pale with alarm. Ambassador, this is the threshold accords, the shipping lanes. Humanity's fleet has held that corridor secure for free, Elena said. For 9 years. While this council debated whether we deserved a vote. She turned from the podium. Bren Cade, her second, was already folding the human delegation's banner. Behind them, the observation gallery had gone electric with noise. Smaller species, the Taloni, the Farron colonies, races with no fleets of their own, realizing in real time what a human withdrawal would mean for the only safe corridor they had left. Voss. Queen Saya's voice cut through the noise, and the chamber obeyed it instantly. You would leave 11 species undefended to make a point. Elena stopped at the threshold of the great doors and looked back up at the throne. I would leave 11 species to a council that let my people die and called it an accounting error. What I do after that is not your concern anymore, Your Majesty. It's a human concern. The doors closed behind the human delegation, and the chamber did not recover for 11 minutes. It took 4 days for the first consequence to arrive. A raider wolf pack, the same one Elena's evidence had traced back to council registries now scrambling to disown their own ships, hit an unescorted Farron convoy in the exact gap the human fleet used to patrol. 19 dead. No one to blame, but the silence where humanity used to stand. Back on Earth, the vote to ratify Elena's withdrawal was not close. The assembly convened for 6 hours, heard the Meridian casualty reports read aloud name by name, and then stood, nearly every delegate at once, to confirm what Elena had already done in that chamber. Bren watched the vote tally from the gallery and thought, for the first time in years, that his people had finally stopped asking permission to matter. It took 7 days for Queen Saya to request a private audience, unlogged, unofficial, in a neutral station on the rim. She came without her throne, without her guard, in a plain traveling cloak, and found Elena alone at a viewport watching a dead system drift by. "You planned the Farron convoy loss," Saya said. "It was not quite an accusation." "I predicted it," Elena said. "I begged your council to prevent it for a year. I'm done begging." The Kirthon Queen was quiet for a long moment. "My people respect strength that keeps its word. Your council never did. Mine, apparently, never noticed the difference." She set a data crystal on the console between them, a bilateral defense compact. Kirthon and human. No council seat, no vote, no committee. Just an agreement between two peoples who bury their dead and remember why. Elena turned the crystal over once in her hand before she answered. "Then we remember together," she said. "Starting now." Outside the viewport, the threshold belt turned slowly in the dark, no longer a council problem, no longer humanity's burden alone, but the first line of something neither empire's history had a name for yet. Somewhere behind them, the Galactic Council was still arguing about procedure. Humanity had already stopped listening, and for the first time in 3 centuries, that silence belonged entirely to them.